OpenEMIS is a versatile open source software which supports the administration of health financing and social protection schemes. It is recognized as a digital public good by the Digital Public Goods Alliance and is listed in Digital Square's Global Goods Guidebook as an emergent global good in digital health. OpenEMIS can be downloaded, adapted, and freely used anywhere in the world. What sets OpenEMIS apart? For efficient delivery, health financing and social protection schemes require complex processes with high volume data flows. OpenEMIS is designed to manage these processes by seamlessly integrating beneficiary, provider, and payer data in a single platform. In Nepal, OpenEMIS has been used to manage the social health insurance scheme since 2016. With OpenEMIS, processes such as enrollment and claims processing have been made easier. With the Android-based enrollment app, enrollment assistants can go door to door to register households to the scheme. And a web-based claims entry reduces paperwork for health facilities, enabling the Health Insurance Board of Nepal to achieve a rapid rate of expansion, rolling the scheme out to the entire country in the last 6 years. OpenEMIS is flexible and can be customized where needed. In Cameroon, OpenEMIS supports the HIV user fee elimination scheme. The goal of the Ministry of Public Health is to remove all user fees for HIV testing and treatment, but there remains sensitivity around collecting data from people living with HIV. The flexibility of OpenEMIS allowed customization to manage beneficiaries while collecting the least possible amount of personal identifying information. Based on its modular design, OpenEMIS is versatile and can be adapted for different uses. In Nepal, in addition to health insurance, OpenEMIS has also been used to manage an employment injury insurance scheme, which offers coverage of medical expenses to workers in the formal sector following an employment-related accident. In Cameroon, OpenEMIS is being customized for voucher schemes for maternal care. And in the Gambia in 2020, OpenEMIS was adapted to manage the largest cash distribution scheme in the country's history, with the goal of protecting poor households against the economic effects of COVID-related lockdowns. OpenEMIS has been developed with interoperability as a priority, and because it is built in accordance with industry standards, can communicate seamlessly with other systems. In Tanzania, where OpenEMIS is used for the Community Health Fund scheme, OpenEMIS is integrated with other government systems, such as the Government e-payment solution, allowing beneficiaries to make convenient digital contributions to the scheme from their phone or computer. Flexibility and interoperability make OpenEMIS a sustainable solution that not only meets the needs of the current moment, but can evolve to meet tomorrow's. When a government, company, or organization starts using OpenEMIS, they join a global community and have access to the expertise and support of implementers, experts, and software developers from around the world. And the OpenEMIS community is growing. 6 years of the OpenEMIS initiative, co-financed by BMZ and SDC, has meant 6 years of expanding use cases, entering new regions, and forging partnerships. Today, OpenEMIS is used for 11 different health and social protection schemes in 8 different countries, covering close to 10 million beneficiaries. With feedback, knowledge sharing, and code contributions, members of the community are constantly working to improve OpenEMIS so that more people can benefit from health and social protection coverage around the globe.
We are going to talk about how you can be part of this great software package that you have seen in the video before. And thank you for showing the video, because that will relieve me from presenting OpenEMIS myself and save me a bit of time in the presentation. The first part will be on the OpenEMIS initiative, especially on the developers committee, and we will show a few options and some examples of how academia could be part of that initiative. We have had a few examples already in the software development group. And the second part will consist of a demo, not a demo, I'm sorry, of a presentation of a current project that is run by the University of Applied Science in Mannheim, Germany. So Oliver Hummel will present that part. So allow me to start with my part, and let's jump right into it with some big words that I actually found on Google Scholar. I want to highlight a bit on the link between open source and academia. I think that has quite a long history. This standing on the shoulders of giants, which basically just means that whatever you think of because you're standing on the shoulders of someone who has thought something before. And in the back you see like a history chart of programming languages and which programming language was derived by which other programming language. And you can see that it's basically a network that all programming languages have borrowed from others. And there are just very, very few examples where they were created really from scratch. So that's basically a paradigm that holds in software development, but it also holds in science. Here you have a quote from Sir Isaac Newton. At least that's what you find in the memes on the internet. That he was able to see further because he was standing on the shoulders of giants. And then when you look it up, he copied this from some Isaiah Ditrani a few years earlier, and that one copied it from a certain Bernard Descartes a few years earlier again, and that guy copied it from Greek methodology. And me, I just copied it from Wikipedia this morning. So science, in essence, I think, is open source by nature. And yeah, there I just want to create the link and stop the philosophical part for now and jump right into it. I don't have to go through those slides. Luckily, they were presented already in the video much better than I can do that. Let me stop right here for the licenses. As a certain addition or a small addition to what was presented in the video. So the software of OpenEMIS is licensed under GNU Affero license version 3. Non-software parts like graphics and training materials and documentation and all that, they are licensed under the Creative Commons license, like the Wikipedia contents. And I think the core criterion is basically this copyleft clause that requires you, whenever you're modifying products and you publish them, then you're required to publish them under the same license, meaning that basically whatever you add to the product, you are feeding back to an open community again. And yeah, that way we can stand on your shoulders. Ways to contribute, just to start off, a few ideas, things that are always welcome, thoughts and ideas on how to improve the product quality, testing the product, reporting bugs, contributing code, of course, that is something that we will go into later. Contribute documentation, manuals, installation instructions, whatever you think is missing. If you just write that down and add it to our wiki, for example, that's already a very good contribution. Contributing translations, translating the software to other languages, that's something that we don't have under contract currently, and where we definitely need help. Contribute assistance in the help desk, answering questions of people who have problems. So there's a lot of ways that people can contribute, and that you could embed in one way or the other into some curriculum that you offer to students. What on the other side you profit from as academia entities, you have a free training software that is being used in real life use cases. You have a huge, well, not huge, but a big stakeholder community of developers, implementers, and users that can answer questions or be part of a study that you might want to do. You have a big and modern code base. Front end is JavaScript, React, back end is Python and Django. So quite up to date on the technology stack. And on the database layer, we are moving to Postgres. So I think that's a bit the core technologies that are being used in open source software development right now. And that would be that's a good learning material for your students when learning, when you teach them how to program software. I want to have a look at the OpenEMIS value chain. Well, this thing I also copied from someone called Michael Porter. Basically, that's how you describe business processes coming from developing something all the way to delivering the product to the clients and getting some margin out of it. Since we are an open source project, we're not working for the margin, but for the impact the software does in the field. But basically, you have like core processes from development going to the implementation of the project in the field, and then operations in those organizations who are running the software. And you have a lot of support processes that we support as OpenEMIS initiative, like community management, fundraising, capacity building, networking and advocacy, running technical platforms. And I think all over in this value chain, there are really good occasions for academia in any way to participate, to insert people, to train them, or to contribute things, or to do research on how processes are being organized and what kind of impact they have in the field. So I think when you look at this is a bit, maybe we are sharing the slides, of course. If you take some time and look at it, you will get a lot of ideas on where you could come in and where you can get some value for your curriculum. Let me show you the structure of the OpenEMIS initiative, our governance structure. Basically, you will have the product group in the center of the initiative, consisting of the coordination desk, which is mainly looking at the supporting processes. That's our GIZ team here in Germany that is running this group. Then you have the developers committee. We will look at that in more detail. It's mainly me coordinating that. And then you have the implementers committees, the implementers committee that is supporting implementations in the field, not doing the implementation, that's not in our mandate, but in supporting implementation projects in the field. Yeah, all that is run and coordinated by our GIZ project, but most of the things that happen here are subcontract to companies outside of GIZ. We have a steering group, basically also which is basically the funder group. We have a stakeholder committee. organizations using it, and organizations or representatives from big international organizations that have an interest in the software. We have a technical advisory group, which is a loose group of experts that we can pull in whenever we need more sophisticated support. And then we have knowledge hubs, just like AeHIN is a knowledge hub for Asia for OpenEMIS. And what we're doing now is part of their tasks, actually. And we are establishing another knowledge hub like that in Africa as well. We're having a French-speaking community for Western Africa that we are running ourselves, called Tumai. Yeah, so that's the broad overview of the structure. We specifically want to look at development now, and here we are. Well, there you see that even commercial products like Microsoft PowerPoints are not really very reliable. This font looked very well in the desktop version of PowerPoint. Basically, this cycle consists of the stages from the ideas in the incubator all the way to the product. It depicts the release cycle that we're running through. I'll switch over to the next slide so you can read those better. This is a screenshot from one of our wiki pages leading into the development part of the wiki. And it basically just gives the same idea of, from ideas. We are creating opportunities, meaning as soon as we get money that we can use to contract someone to develop some of those ideas, we'll turn them into opportunities. And as soon as those are contracted, they turn into projects. You can click on, if you go to that page, you can click on all the links and you would have an overview of our current project portfolio, for example, and all that ends up in releases at the end of the project, at the end of the product cycle. Yeah, so I highly encourage you to, if you are looking for student projects and things to do around software development, I highly encourage you to look at the product incubator. There you will find a lot of ideas described where implementers and current users have brought up ideas and wishes that of features that they want to have included in OpenEMIS. So that would be a good source of information on what to do in, for example, a student lab. Let me quickly look at the roadmap that we have gone through so far and what we are still planning for the rest of the year. OpenEMIS has started out as a closed source software project, product built on closed source software framework, namely Microsoft.NET and Microsoft SQL Server. And what we have done in the past 2 or 3 years is basically that we carved out modules from this big Visual Basic code base in dark green. So we started carving out single modules and transferred them to Python and JavaScript. And this year we managed to really migrate the full code base of the application layer. So since April 22, this release, you are able to install OpenEMIS without .NET frameworks and all that. And it can run completely on a Linux server, for example. It can be installed completely with Docker packages. And we also have added a lot of modules, like we have added a fire layer, we have added an indicator dashboard for monitoring, we have added an AI module for claims adjudication. We extended the schemes to accident insurance and formal sector schemes, and just recently let's say we completed a payment layer project which connects OpenEMIS to payment systems. Just briefly looking at, you don't have to look at the details, but this gives a good overview of the teams that have been involved in development so far. So when we talk about the developers committee, it's basically at least the teams that are actively developing software. But you can see there are some alumni in there as well, and I still keep them in the list of the developers committee, because all those people who have been programming on contracts maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, of course the experts are still there. They did not leave planet Earth, and you can still contact them for questions for things that they have done, and most of them, they are still also very open to answer questions. And so we still consider them part of the developers committee. Once you are in, you never get out. And yeah, that's a good base of people to communicate with. We have additional developers coming through pilot projects in countries, for example, Djibouti, Gambia, Zanzibar, Cameroon, from Tanzania and Nepal. We have all those people who have implemented the software locally and added features, adapted the software to local needs. They, of course, are also part of the developers committee. And now I highlighted the student projects. Let me take a bit more time for those. There were 3 examples that we had so far. The first 2 that you can see here, the database migration and the fire upgrade, were thesis projects run or managed by Swiss TPH in Switzerland. So each thesis was done by a student from the university and managed by or supported by the team from Swiss TPH that is doing the development in OpenEMIS as well. And the first one was well, an explorative study, basically what we are building on right now on that experience. And that person looked at what would be needed to migrate from the Microsoft SQL server to a Postgres server. And so he wrote a few scripts and did some sample migrations, and wrote a thesis about what can go wrong and what we have to pay attention to. And the developers who are doing the actual migration right now profit a lot from what that student has done. The second thesis, same constellation in Swiss TPH, was a student who looked at our FHIR interfaces. The first version that we did initially in 2018 was based on FHIR version 3. And that person looked at, well, FHIR version 4 and updated some of the APIs and gave pointers to what needed to be done to update the others. So that was also a very, very helpful thesis, and the results of the work that was done in that thesis, they directly entered into the code base of OpenEMIS. Yeah, and then this big example that we are going to see afterwards, I'm not going to talk about it now. Mars Software Lab. Mars is still on Earth, and in fact, they are not far from where I'm sitting right now. So Oliver will tell you more about that. Then AeHIN, I think we really have to mention that, because that's a project, a short datathon that was run last weekend by the Technical University of Kathmandu. And students were like in a datathon, in a competition to look at a data model from an insurance company that had implemented disease-related groups. And the question was, what would be needed to get OpenEMIS ready to implement disease-related groups. So we are still waiting for the results. It's currently in evaluation, and we're curious to see what suggestions the students have where we should change our database tables to get ready for DRGs. Yeah, okay, so those are projects that really happened. We are also looking at Google Summer of Code, and I'm always writing next year because we have tried it 2 years in a row now, trying to be part of that funding mechanism from Google, and we did not succeed yet, but we will try again next year, and that will open up opportunities for more students projects. Well, yeah, then let's look back at additional developers which are not students. So we do have projects in countries. In Nepal, there was a lot of additional development done, accident insurance, formal sector, dashboards. They have developed a new app where insurees can see their insurance status on their mobile phones, and a lot of useful features that come from there. Well, looking at the time a bit, I think I should hurry up now. And well, we always have new tenders coming in. Coordination of the group happens in regular calls. We have weekly calls where we discuss daily business, troubleshooting, and so ever. If whatsoever, if you get the slides, you can click here to get to the minutes page, and you can see what we're talking about. If you have a student's project, then we really invite you to send maybe one or two representatives to that call, and they can report on a regular basis of what is happening in their project, and keep the communication loop open, and we can directly help them if they are stuck with something, or when they think there's something that we need to do in order to get them moving. We have monthly calls which correspond a bit to Scrum review calls. We call them Gumzo, yeah, Mwezi. That's Kiswahili for monthly chat. And here, all the projects, they present briefly in 10 minutes their status and whether they want to go to next month. So you would be very welcome to be part of that exercise as well. Have ad hoc calls to go into deep dives, specifically talk about technical topics which are interesting to the whole community. And then we try to participate in a lot of events like conferences and all that. All those pages are links in the slides. So if you are interested in that, you can just open the slides and click on those links. We have a number of community tools, and I think that should be my last slide now. Not going through that in detail. Homepage, wiki, chat group. I really recommend you sign up to that if you want to get into close contact with the developers. We have a service desk and an issue tracker for questions and all that. You can have access to the code repository. There's a demo server, and of course the documentation, the general documentation that we have in the wiki. So I think I'm through. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. And I'm handing over to Oliver right away, and we'll look at questions in the Q&A session afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Uwe. And yeah, thanks very much for the invitation, for giving this talk here. Yeah, about our Mars project at the University of Applied Sciences in Mannheim, which is for your geographical orientation. I'll prepare the Google map here. As you can see, it's right here in the southwestern part of Germany, quite close to Frankfurt, for example. And we are quite technical oriented university, and we from Mars started our mission from Mars, or to Mars if you will, is that we are teaching the students how to found companies, how to become entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial thinking. And one part of it is having this in IT, or doing this in IT. So this is how I, and especially Christoph, who did this course, came into this, and we're very keen and happy to be able to support this interesting project, this OpenEMIS project, which I think is a quite nice example how the world and many different countries can work together to do something meaningful, to do something good for the world. And this is why we are quite happy to support this. And we are, as I said, the Center for Entrepreneurship of this University of Applied Sciences. And we came up with this idea of this course. We have a quite long tradition at our university of doing practical courses with students. So we have, for example, in the 4th semester of our IT bachelor courses, we have a project semester where the whole cohort, the whole team of one semester or of the fourth semester is working on a software project which is given to us from a real customer, from a real company usually, and where the students are supposed to develop something to solve a concrete problem for this customer. And in this tradition, we came up with this idea for the commercialization of open source systems, which is an elective course in the 6th or 7th semester of our bachelor studies for computer science bachelors and open for master students as well. It's supposed to achieve a workload of about 150 hours, as you can see on the slide. And yeah, we did this for the first time. We did this as a kind of a trailblazer in the cooperation with the OpenEMIS project. Right now we are in the middle of the, well, more or less in the middle of the semester. So we have about 2/3 behind us, and we have 5 more weeks ahead of us. And currently there are about 20 students in the course that are participating and working on this OpenEMIS challenge. And yeah, the main idea of this course is that we said, as the title implies, we wanted to commercialize open source software, and we wanted to show the students a path how they can become entrepreneurs, or how they can become freelancers, for example, in the software development world. And we did another course in the last semester, which was quite well appreciated by people at our university, where we where we taught them Flutter development. Flutter is a platform for, especially for mobile or for platform independent mobile development, where you can get apps for iOS and Android alike from the same code base, and if you want, even for Windows or Mac OS. And yeah, as I said, this went quite well, this course. And so we said, okay, we want to do something more specialized towards finding opportunities, how to make a living from software development. And yeah, the main idea was that we teamed up with the OpenEMIS project and wanted to be as close to the real world as possible. And so we looked up some real tenders in the context of this OpenEMIS project, where students had to, or are still in the process of creating a bid for this tender, and are required to describe how they would support, or how they would implement this tender, and what kind of software, what kind of services they would deliver. And they also have to develop a business plan, of course, in order to get a feeling, to get an understanding how this works, whether they would be able to actually fund a development team from the development efforts, or from the money they receive for this offer, then if they would be contracted. And so yeah, I think we have formed quite an interesting package here for the students, and which is quite a nice learning experience. And I hope that we will collect feedback of the students in the end of the course, of course. And I hope that we will get good feedback on the one hand, and constructive feedback maybe on the other hand, what we can improve in another round of this course that we have in mind for the next summer semester in 2023. Yeah, the overall course structure is, as I said, we wanted to be as practical, as close to the real world as possible. So we limited the theory parts and the input of Christopher, of the lecturer, to about 20%. Then we enforce a lot of discussions during the course, a lot of presentation sessions, which also comes up at about 20%. And the remaining 60% is actually really about the doing, is discussing how could this how could this offer be written. We are actually working on implementation of something which will be explained on one of the next slides. As you can see, the theory part here, we'll go over this very briefly. It's about business models, of course. It's about open source licenses, so that the students know what they are allowed to do or what they have to do with this open source license. Then, Christoph presented some case studies. He told or explained to students how to productize software systems. I mean, you have to have quality assurance, you have to have tests, you have to have some strategies for deploying and operating a software and so on. He explained them how to enter the market with a software team, with such a product, how to build a community, and how to write bids, how to write offers for tenders. And Christoph is absolutely the perfect man for this job, since he built up a consulting companies for about 15 years or so on his own before he changed to the university, and said he wanted to share his knowledge and to convey his knowledge with our students. And presentation and discussion part of the lecture is basically similar to what Uwe just described for the OpenEMIS project itself, is that we present the weekly process, discuss design decisions, illustrate some lessons learned, and do code reviews if necessary, and then prepare for the final presentation, which is actually the bidding process, or the bid that they are supposed to write for the OpenEMIS tender. In the practice part, it's actually development of a mobile app for OpenEMIS, which is one part which was in this tender as well, which is needed, and where we started the development with this Flutter framework that I mentioned earlier. So not sure whether we have many people from this elective last semester, because students usually do the electives at the end of their studies, and normally are writing their bachelor thesis afterwards. So but of course it is helpful to build for ourselves on this knowledge that we gained with the development of this Flutter course last semester. I have, of course, some constraints in the practical implementation of this part. We need to take care about the features, look for the programming framework itself, which I said we used the Flutter due to our experience with it. Then we had some limitations with the version control, where we had to use, for data protection reasons, we had to use internal Git system of the university, but I hope that we can migrate this to GitHub after we finished the course successfully in the end. And otherwise we try to give the students as little limitations, as little constraints as possible, so that they can freely decide how they wanted to approach this, how they want to implement their tasks. And the lecturer, Christoph, basically acted as a coach whom the students can address and ask for help if necessary. And I think this worked also quite well. And students had to learn a lot, so slowly approaching the lessons learned for us. So probably it was a bit too much. They had really to learn or to get into OpenEMIS, which is quite a complex system, of course. They had to learn FHIR as interfacing technology, which is an exchange format or exchange protocol for medical information science or medical information systems. Flutter is based on Dart as a programming language, which is another steep, or which was another steep learning curve for most of the students. Flutter as a framework itself is a learning curve, of course. And then finally, also our students have quite a lot of experience, as I already indicated, with projects, with practical projects. Still, self-organization as a team was a learning curve as well, especially since this team is quite big with 20 people, and 20 people had to coordinate themselves in order to make a meaningful distribution here for the project. Yeah, let me continue with some good lessons learned and some positive aspects we learned. Yeah, the course is very attractive. Yeah, it's something meaningful, as I said in the beginning. Yeah, we can participate in a global initiative, if you will, where actually, yeah, computer science is able to make an impact. Yeah, is able to make a positive impact to the world. So this is very attractive for our students. They are highly motivated because they also are able to work with many modern technologies. So yeah, this is a very positive aspect. The next positive thing is that we really were able to decouple from many internals of OpenEMIS, and that we found our niche basically where we can do the development, and that we experienced the community of OpenEMIS as a very helpful and very supportive community. Yeah, there are some other, simply show them all. There are some other learnings for us. Yeah, too much work, as I said before, too many new aspects for the students to get into. So this has been a challenge, and we are aiming to improve that in the next edition of the course. We have a very diverse group in this course, since we have 4 different, or if you take from another faculty, another bachelor course, we even have 5 different bachelor studies that you can, or that send people to this course. Yeah, we even have a master or some master students in this course. So we have a very diverse group, and we experience this is a strength on one hand, of course, but on the other hand, it's kind of a challenge, because there are, the people are on different levels regarding their technical abilities. And this makes it very challenging, actually, to really integrate the people into a team, and makes it challenging for the team itself to become a strong and self-managed team. Yeah, then we had some organizational issues, as always in such large and diverse teams. Time conflicts with, for example, OpenEMIS meetings, different timetables for the people or different schedules for the people in the team. That makes it very hard for them to meet at the university. So they are actually experimenting with online calls in the evening and so on, which doesn't make it easier to become a strong team. And yeah, probably 20 people is simply too much, and we should have come up with ideas perhaps to separate the group into 2 or 3 teams to make working for them easier. Yeah, and also another experience is that if you have some students, you need to have some students that make the project, that do the project management, and it's quite hard for these students to give orders or to give jobs to other students that they should implement. Yeah, so yeah, but it's probably, you have to learn that as well, and this is certainly a learning and an interesting learning for the students that prepares them well for their future work life. And yeah, there's a fourth point that even the lecturers' OpenEMIS knowledge was quite limited when we started the course. Yeah, I think that was probably the steepest learning curve of all of them for Christoph to get into the project more closely, but I think that was a success as well. Yeah, and the course has not ended yet. As I said before, we are still 5 weeks ahead of the end of the semester. But I believe we all have learned a lot already, and the students will learn a lot more probably. And yeah, that, so to say, that was an interesting experience for all of us. Yeah, I'm happy in the Q&A session. Maybe or hopefully Christoph can join us until then to answer your questions as well. Otherwise, feel free to drop him or myself an email. It's just the mail address. Yeah, it's the same for all of us. Yeah, it's o.hammel@hs-mannheim.de if you want to reach me. And yeah, so far from my side, thank you very much for the attention. And as I said, I'm happy to answer questions in the Q&A session.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Oliver and Sir Uwe. Dr. Christoph has already joined the call. And then,
very good. Yeah.
Welcome, Dr. Christoph.
Welcome, Christoph.
Oh, hello. I just arrived.
All right, thank you. We have our first question in the chat box. It's from Dr. Rabindra. Congratulations, a very well-designed course. So, Professor, how do you support resources in terms of theory and practical to students?
I think, Professor, that's you.
Christoph, do you want to answer that? Or,
yeah. I don't understand the question.
Maybe Dr. Rabindra can also provide some context. We also enabled the microphones. Dr. Rabindra.
Hello, Professor. Thank you very much for a very nice presentation and giving insight for us to design new courses like OpenEMIS. What actually I mean to ask is that the students need so many tools, materials to learn the course, even environment, laboratory facilities, maybe incentives or not. I'm talking in that way, how we can arrange or how much for a student we have to think for the resources. In that sense, I asked this question.
Okay. As part of the lectures, I gave a short introduction in the programming language Dart and in Flutter. And I also supplied them all the materials from a Flutter course that I gave in the last year. So this was a quick and not too, or it was a quick introduction in the programming part. The same I did with Fire. I gave a short introduction in 90 minutes into Fire, and the rest was up to the students that they had to dig into the details and into the programming. And it was planned that the students form different groups, and each group tackles a different problem. So one group had to look into a Fire and had to figure out what has to be done to implement the Fire client and how to integrate it in the application. But even for that, I gave a short example, programming example, which works, which gives them a quick start where they can further develop the application.
Yes, Professor Rabindra says thank you. Dr. Christoph.
Can I also ask a question to my colleagues?
Yes, please go ahead, Sir Uwe.
Then, talking about training materials for your students, I suppose that most of what you have done is in German, so international relevance is a bit a bit reduced then, but is it generally possible to avail those learning materials as under a Creative Commons license as well and feed it into the project?
Of course, there's no problem from my side. We can go over the documents and check which is really relevant to the project. And it's also possible to translate it in English if it's possible from a point of time for me.
Because those questions, they are frequently being asked to our implementation supporters, and I think my colleague Jean is in the call as well, who frequently gets questions from the French-speaking community as well, and sometimes it's just lacking basic material to, for example, explain fire and things like that. So thank you.
I think there are no more questions from our participants, and we also have a few minutes remaining in the call, so maybe we can wrap it up. Once again, we would like to thank Sir Uwe, Dr. Oliver, and Dr. Christoph for accepting our invitation to be a resource person in this AeHIN Hour webinar. We hope to see you again in our next webinars. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.